Hi, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Hayden.
And this is
Until the End of Crime.
All right, Hayden, I have a scenario for you.
Okay, I'm listening.
You're at home, minding your P's and Q's, and all of a sudden, there's a knock on your door.
I've never minded my P's and Q's, so this is already a bad scenario.
So there's a knock on your door, you open it, and the person identifies themselves as a reporter and tells you that you are on someone's bitch list and that they are concerned for your life.
Okay.
How do you respond?
I'm going to say, obviously, I'm on someone's bitch list. And if every person who had me on their bitch list got their way, I would have already died a long time ago.
So you're not welcoming this guy in and offering him tea?
Does he want to interview me? Am I going to be on TV? Do I get to plug the pod? Because that really changes the dynamic of how I'm going to interface with this interviewer. So I suppose I would say, please, sir, come on in. We are going to...
Okay, but have you glossed over the part where he's concerned for your life?
And it's a reporter?
Yes.
It's a lot of involvement for a reporter, right? Doesn't necessarily seem genuine. A reporter saying, sir, I'm worried about your life.
Okay.
I don't believe that. You're a reporter. You are ready for me to die so you can report on it.
Got it. Not all reporters, but I guess in this scenario.
Yeah, and not all men. But here we are. Sorry. So, okay, the reporter comes. I'm on a bitch list. I'm worried for your safety. Invite me in.
If I'm being honest, I used the phrase bitch list for your benefit.
Yeah.
Because I know you love it.
I do.
I know. But okay, say he comes and he's like, hey, you're on somebody's hit list. Somebody wants you dead.
That's a little different.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
Okay, so how do you respond? Do you believe him?
I don't think anyone wants me dead. I think I would be confused.
Yeah.
I would say, what are your credentials? Who are you? I think that's how I would approach it.
Okay.
And if he could prove that he was someone with some kind of knowledge that others did not have, even like, okay, are you from KSAT 12, KINS 5, WOAI 4? What is your journalistic affiliation? Express News or the San Antonio Current? Or do you run the La Chismosa 210 page on Facebook?
That does sound more like where I would want to be.
Or San Antonio Exposed. It's amazing. They are like, watch out for Brian because he fucked 2 women and he's married to another woman. And I love that gossip. You know what? I'm going off the deep end. Would I invite the journalist in? Would I believe them? I don't think I would necessarily believe them, but it would give me pause.
Okay.
And I would say, you know what? I'm going to call some kind of like PD and say, will you please come over because there's a journalist here telling me that I'm going to die. I think that's how I would handle it.
Interesting. Sometime in early December 2020, a website received an order from a customer with the username Malik8.
Was this full swing pandemic, December 2020? Yeah, right? Not full swing.
Yeah, I think schools had gone back, but some of them were hybrid and some of them were online.
Is the spring of 2020 when we had to go home? After spring break?
Mm-hmm. March 2020.
So by December 2020, I was back in the classroom and masks were mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That helps. I like to really know what was going on in these crimes that happened in my lifetime.
This was no regular website, though. It was on the dark web, and it was actually a murder for hire site.
Okay. Awesome. Party.
Why is this so funny?
It's so crazy that we have something called the dark web and murder for hires are there. That's crazy to me.
Malik8 was willing to pay $5,000 to have their former spouse killed.
5,000.
Yeah, a lot, right?
That's nothing.
Oh.
That's nothing.
I don't think you and Malik8 are going to see eye to eye about that.
No, Diva, if that's a monthly paycheck, that's nothing.
Wow. Cut to early 2003.
I guess what I'm saying is I think it should take at least a year's salary to get somebody killed, not 1 month of your work.
We'll get into it.
Okay.
But right now, it's early 2003. Kelly Horton and Travis Harper were both enrolled at the University of Arizona. So they probably chatted a few times, but never anything really serious. And during one of those chats, Kelly mentioned that her car was acting up and she had just been having some problems with it. It's not really clear if Travis offered to come check it out or if she asked him if he could come by, but either way, Travis ended up swinging by Kelly's place to see what he could figure out about her car. What he discovered was that the car had no problems, that Kelly had just lied to him as a way of getting him to come over because she needed a Valentine's date and she wanted it to be him.
That screams a single white female energy. That I have car trouble and literally a trap to get him to take her out. Okay.
This is how that date went. Kelly's roommate and her boyfriend were going to a dinner, and Kelly didn't want to be the third wheel, especially on Valentine's Day. Embarrassing.
So this guy was like, yeah, I'll come check out your car on Valentine's Day.
I don't know that he went on Valentine's Day. I think that might have been part of the ruse. And then she asked him when he was there if they could go to dinner with her roommate and the boyfriend for Valentine's Day. I don't know. I wasn't there. I was somewhere in middle school.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So Kelly didn't want to be the third wheel. So she asked Travis to go with her. And she told him it was just a casual dinner. So he showed up. And it turned out that he was underdressed for the black tie dinner event at a steakhouse where all the food was a la carte. As a college student, he was fuming that he had to spend essentially every last penny he had to cover their meals. But all of his annoyance melted away when she kissed him on the cheek at the end of the evening.
Ooh, that wasn't worth a kiss on the cheek. I mean, I don't think, listen, you're not owed anything.
Right.
But by the same token, you set me up. You put me in a bad position. I'm underdressed. I knew you'd be underdressed if you were coming to work on someone's car. What is he in, fucking coveralls?
That's why I don't think that it was the same day, but I'm not sure. But I think that the ruse was to get him to come over to look at her car and then invite him to be her date. You know, maybe they're 19, 20 and she doesn't want to ask him in front of a room full of their peers. Maybe she wants to see how things go when it's just the two of them.
Well, then why was he underdressed for the dinner?
She told him it was a casual dinner.
And what did she wear?
I don't know what she was wearing.
Are these details important?
No.
Okay. I need disclaimers.
So after that Valentine's Day date, the two continued dating and they had a great time. They were both very motivated. They had a path and a plan, and they were actively working to achieve their goals. They moved in together after 6 months. Kelly wanted to work in healthcare administration and was enrolled in the program, hoping to earn a scholarship for that. Did I say they were enrolled in the same program?
No.
They were enrolled in the same program, I think. Does it actually make sense to me? No. But the source said that they were enrolled in the same program.
Okay.
So she was enrolled in the program hoping to earn a scholarship to work in healthcare administration, and she wanted to buy a home by the age of 21. And she wanted to graduate within 3 years. She achieved all of these goals.
What it was like to live in the early 2000s.
I know.
Home ownership.
And there I was buying roll-on body glitter, and she's buying a home.
I wish I would have known to start saving then.
That's when I should have bought a house in middle school. Travis wanted to be a fighter pilot and was enrolled in the program because the military would cover his tuition and fast track him to achieve his goal.
To be a fighter pilot?
Yep.
From health administration?
No, that's what she wanted.
But I thought they were in the same program.
I know. I know that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense, but that is what the source said.
Okay, sure.
Right around the time that these two would be graduating and moving into their respective careers, a year after they moved in together, they got married. Travis was still so broke from that financially ruinous Valentine's date that he couldn't afford a suit. So he and his groomsmen all wore their military blues.
Okay.
About 75 people attended their wedding. And because it was around the time that he and all his friends would be shipping off to their military assignments, they used this wedding as an excuse to celebrate for the whole week. I think the wedding was in one of their grandmother's or grandparents' backyards.
Young people are so dumb.
I know.
Okay, they're not dumb. They just don't have the life experience yet to know that a week of partying, that's ruinous. So they partied for a week.
Yeah, I don't think that it's like some elaborate thing. I just think that it was a lot of them hanging out with their buddies and drinking, and they were pretending that it was because of the wedding. But really, they were all about to ship off to their different respective military assignments. And in all honesty, I have been to one of these kind of gatherings where everybody is hanging out and drinking because one of the people in the group is, well, getting engaged because they're about to join the Marine Corps. So, like, I think it was more that.
Was he in the Marine Corps?
Uh-huh.
So the war in Afghanistan is obviously still going on.
Mm-hmm. Travis and his buddies were all enlisted in the Marine Corps. So they did the traditional sword ceremony where a sword tunnel is created for them to walk through. And then halfway, they're barred from passing until they kiss. And then the bride gets a tap on the ass from a sword before the newlyweds can continue on their path.
Is that real?
How lovely. As real as that dog.
Okay, well, pretty fucking real then.
Once they're married, Travis was working his way through a program that could take 1 to 2 years so that he could become a fighter pilot, as I mentioned before. At the end of the program, he would be under contract with the military and they would ship him anywhere in the world on a moment's notice. That didn't quite jive with Kelly's settled with a home idea. She had also gotten hired as a healthcare administrator, and being the wife of a military officer wasn't necessarily the life she had pictured for herself. Quickly, Travis realized that not only was Kelly not interested in being an officer's wife, but she just had no intentions of participating in the military lifestyle.
When I hear those people that live the military lifestyle, it never sounds good.
Right.
It sounds rough and awful. Ruffle. It sounds ruffle. We cannot sit here and reduce everyone's experience to being the same.
Right.
We can't do that. But so often, especially for these people who were active during that time period, right after 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
and even throughout the 20-teens, they came home from their deployments suffering from awful PTSD. And not only do these spouses go through that military lifestyle, but once their spouse comes back, they're not the same.
Right.
And it's so incredibly difficult. And so
even if they got married at 19, 20, 21, by the time they're 30, they are not the same people, which is why people who get married young,
by the time they're fucking 25, they're already different people.
Right. And then being deployed really expedites that process of them growing into different people, or at least one of them is kind of fast tracked into becoming a different person.
It's hard for both. And I can understand why Kelly would not be vibing with that. But if you spend a week getting married and celebrating it, I don't know, bitch. You're kind of signing up for it. You can't say you didn't know.
Right.
Anyway.
Because I know these two characters, I'm having to hold my tongue because I have strong feelings about...
How new and different for you?
I am trying something new. I've decided that I'm going to try to get to know my characters in a way that makes me have strong feelings about what they do or don't do, or why they would or wouldn't do something.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's working out okay. So while being enlisted in the military does come with the chance of being stationed in various locations throughout the world, it seems that the fighter pilot program offered that, but you could be shipped off at a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm.
And since Travis knew Kelly was not going to be doing the military wife life with enthusiasm, he decided he had to choose either between being a fighter pilot or being with Kelly. He decided Kelly mattered more to him, so he withdrew from the program and threw his name into the bucket as an active duty Marine.
Well, any life that was important to him with his spouse, he lost that the moment he stuck that name in the Marine bucket hat.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's see how this unfolds to be exactly what I can assume it to be.
Let's see how this story, where we've started off talking about the marriage of this young couple, and also about how somebody goes online to have their former spouse killed. Let's see how this goes on this true crime podcast.
For $5,000.
Yeah, that's way too much. Travis assumed that this would make things go easier for his marriage, but when he was told that his assignment would be in Okinawa, Japan, He also learned that Kelly was suffering from polycystic kidney disorder.
Oh, no.
She submitted the paperwork from her doctors about having this disorder to the Marine Corps, and they were like, oh, Kelly, this is terrible. You have this disease, and this doctor whose care you are under for it, you absolutely cannot go to Japan. Travis, since your wife cannot go to Japan, you can't either.
Okay, that feels accommodating.
Yeah. Another fun fact, Kelly did not actually have polycystic kidney disorder. She'd made it all up to get out of her or Travis going to Japan.
Oh, I love this bitch. I love that she has decided, you know what? Let's fake a diagnosis. Let's do whatever we can to get out of what I don't want to do. Could I do it? Probably not. But if I had a friend doing it, I'd be like, okay, bitch, work.
I'd be like, I love that you're really supporting your husband by stamping out any plan or dream that he has by coming up with fake disorders.
This feels felonious, but follow your bliss. Lying to the military is probably illegal, right?
I don't know.
It's gotta be. You can't lie to the military.
You know, that does not come up as a crime in this case.
Oh, good.
On the
It's probably chump
True Crime
change.
podcast. You already know the crime. I told you the crime already.
Okay, it's just that is fierce. It's cunty. It's cool, but I do not co-sign the behavior.
But you support Kelly. Yes, Queen Kelly.
There's like a level of admiration
Okay.
because it's something I couldn't do.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
No.
Party.
So instead of Okinawa, Travis was stationed in Yuma, Arizona, and Kelly was thrilled about this because she was in Phoenix, and since Yuma was only a 2-hour drive, she could stay in Phoenix, and they could spend their weekends together in wedded bliss.
She didn't even want to be married.
Perfect. Part of the reason Travis had joined the military was so he could experience the world, see greenery, get out of Arizona.
Did Travis know she was lying about PKD?
I don't think he knew in real time, but I think he found out.
Well, now I'm starting to feel bad for Travis.
I don't know why you would feel bad for Travis.
Because he wanted to travel the world,
Because
and he married
Kelly
this
had-
woman.
Kelly had plans.
And he gave up his fighter pilot plans for
She
her.
had goals, and he had plans and goals, and she has realized all of hers, and he has compromised almost every step of the way.
Yeah, that's sad for him.
So he wanted to see the earth, see the world, see things that were not Arizona. And that ended up not really happening while he was enlisted. Instead, during his 4-year career as a Marine, he and Kelly maintained this living situation where they didn't reside in the same place, but saw each other when they had time in their schedules. He did do at least one tour in Iraq, but I don't think that he saw a lot of greenery there, you know?
Yeah, I don't think the Middle Eastern desert is famous for their greenery.
Probably like Arizona, but worse.
Oh, worse than Arizona?
Oh my God, he went to an active war zone.
Sorry, God, Arizona is so bleak.
You spent a lot of time in Arizona, have you?
Only like a day, and that was awful.
You were in the car, weren't you?
Yes, I would never do it again. Wow, I am dramatic. Go ahead.
In 2010, Travis left the military and the couple started having children. They had 3 daughters, and they moved from Arizona to Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which in 2023 had a population just shy of 38,000.
Okay.
Kelly worked as a healthcare administrator, and Travis worked at the local airport. They were finally able to settle back into a cohabitating lifestyle, something that they'd both been yearning for since basically they got married and stopped living together.
Mm-hmm.
But living together again, having young children, and uprooting themselves from Arizona to Wisconsin all practically at the same time was not really a walk in the park. With all these life changes, the couple found themselves fighting.
Who could have seen this coming?
Not I. And a lot of these fights surrounded Travis's suspicions that Kelly had gotten involved with fraud.
Okay.
Which maybe to your point, she had already been involved with fraud. One evening, he arrived at their beautiful home, which could even be described as large, maybe mansion-esque. And he got there after a long day at work, and he found Kelly's computer open, and he saw some emails that she had been sending. She had apparently been corresponding with Nigerian princes. about how despondent she was since she and her children had no place to live and were too poor to afford basic necessities. And she really, really needed money.
I'm still stuck on the Nigerian prince part.
It does seem like a role reversal.
Because I feel like that scam is a Nigerian prince messages you and says, I'm waiting for my inheritance and I need $50,000 and I will pay it back to you with 100% interest as soon as my whatever kicks in.
Yeah, I think what happened there is that's probably how the conversation started, but Game recognized Game and she was like, no, I need money. My kids and I are living on the streets. All I have is this Wi-Fi connected laptop. The fabricated email threads really caused their marriage to come apart at the seams.
That marriage started with frayed seams.
Travis told Kelly to cut the crap, stop pretending to strangers that she and their daughters were living on the streets unless she wanted to get some firsthand experience doing exactly that.
Weird threat.
He essentially told her, you pull this shit again and I am done and you are out.
I mean, who's paying for their mansion?
I guess a Nigerian prince, turns out.
I mean...
But Travis suspected that Kelly was still defrauding people because he didn't know how long she had been doing this, if it was primarily done online. It's not like he was monitoring her at all times, going through her phone and computer regularly. He just happened to see something odd on her computer and investigated that. Maybe there were other schemes. And he also had noticed a change in Kelly's behavior. She was seemingly more erratic. One day, Kelly told Travis that she had had a falling out with her management at the healthcare company she'd been working for, and that this had resulted in her getting fired. There was a lot of uncertainty surrounding Kelly now.
What a little bitch.
And with all of their arguing and the way she was behaving, Travis really started contemplating divorce, sharing with friends that he believed his marriage was over. He met with an attorney to get advice on how best to proceed.
Was she ever working for a healthcare company?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that part's true.
Yeah.
Her whole scheme wasn't just fraud.
No, she was working.
I'm still stuck on Nigerian princes. If it's Nigerian princes, who gives a fuck? Let her tell whatever story she wants.
Don't you think there's a level of pride when you read online that your wife is begging for money because she's saying that she and her children are homeless?
Why? You're never going to meet the Nigerian prince. Who gives a fuck?
Well, I see where your moral compass is in comparison to Travis's moral compass.
Travis is suffering from an illness called heteronormativity and heterosexual male pride and patriarchal. Your wife's bringing home the big bucks from the Nigerian prince and no need to be proud.
I don't know that she ever got money.
Okay, so well, then why does he care at all? It's not like she's cosplaying.
Okay. Travis he cared. He didn't want her telling people that they were living on the streets.
But the Nigerian prince doesn't know him. He's got no reason to show off. He's got no reason for, it just doesn't matter.
So it's okay to scam people online if you're never going to meet them?
Well, they're not getting any money. So it's not even scamming. She's just living out a fantasy.
Okay, fine. You and all of the people who are not heteronormative are just out there scamming people online all the time, particularly princes from other countries.
I mean, we're not a monolith. I'm just saying that I feel like he is really up in arms about, it's like she's a kindergartner playing house. She's just like, she's having this rich fantasy world where she's telling this Nigerian prince, oh, I'm so poor. I'm just a mom on the streets. And really and truly, she's just fucking around. Like, okay, here's how I'm going to contextualize it. On the internet, you can be whoever you want. You can be absolutely whoever you want. Message boards, dating websites, you're free to catfish. Should you? No. But you're free to catfish. You're free to take on any of these different personas. There are entire communities dedicated to role-playing that way. RPGs. And so did she do it the right way? And I can't pretend to know her motives. I can't pretend to understand her train of thought, what she was hoping to ultimately get from these interactions. But by the same token, there are people who live really, really, and I do genuinely mean this in a kind way, they live really rich fantasy lives. And I think that's fine, especially if people know up front that it's a fantasy life. I guess I just can't quite put my finger on why I think he's so upset if it's not related to a sense of pride.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and try to maybe look at some of the information that we already have about Kelly and see if you think that there's a possibility that that could maybe explain it.
Okay.
So let's say that when she faked having PKD, that he did not know about it at the time, but learned of it later.
Okay.
And those types of behaviors continued on maybe a minor scale, maybe on a bigger scale, but maybe this was one of those straw that broke the camel's back, or maybe this wasn't the first conversation that they've had to have about, hey, stop pulling this shit because it's not right. Because this was also put into the same context with her behavior becoming more erratic.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if maybe there was not more to the story, more to the history between the couple and these types of antics that she was getting herself into. And maybe it was fantasy. Maybe it was just her living that out, but it could also be very taxing to have a partner that is seemingly so dissatisfied with the reality of your life that they're constantly trying to make it more exciting or whatever she's doing.
Right. No, and I understand that. And it does help to contextualize this behavior in terms of the greater scheme of how Kelly operates. And so I definitely understand what you're saying. And I can see how Travis, or a person like Travis, could feel this way. How it could be concerning to see your loved one have a pattern of behavior, maybe is seemingly escalating. You know, I always look at things through the critical lens of sexuality. I cannot help myself. And so for me, I think about sexuality and gender at the forefront of any analysis. So it's hard for me to not sit here and play devil's advocate for a woman who is seemingly in a relationship that she doesn't really want to be in, but it does sound like she is suffering from some kind of potential mental illness.
We're going to hold that thought. I would love to revisit that conversation by the end of this whole thing. I don't know that I'll remember to, but I would like to revisit this conversation if we remember to revisit it.
Okay.
Right around that same time, a letter arrived for the Harpers from the bank. Travis opened it and read that the bank was threatening to repossess the house due to missed payments. Paying the mortgage was Kelly's responsibility, so he asked her about it, and she assured him that she had been making all of the payments for the house.
Oh, no.
Somehow this wasn't good enough for Travis, who had the awareness that the bank doesn't just claim that you missed 3 payments unless you've missed 3 payments. He wanted to see the statements, but Kelly didn't know where they were. But she did know that they had paid their mortgage for the last 3 months. Travis was like, okay, you don't have the statements. Fine. Show me proof that you paid even one of the last 3 months' mortgage payments. But until I know definitively that we are not about to have our home repossessed, I will not drop this.
That seems fair.
And then, much like you, he brought up the Nigerian prince scam that she'd been trying to run. And Kelly got very upset. She was hurt that her husband was not believing her when she told him that she had paid the mortgage on the home where they lived with their 3 children. They go round and round with this argument, with Travis refusing to believe Kelly at her word, and Kelly being upset that he would think she would lie to him about something so major. The argument moved into the kitchen at some point. It was so heated. And finally, Kelly reached for something and pulled out a cookbook. And instead of prepping Nani's famous chicken pot pie recipe, she pulled out divorce papers and threw them at Travis.
This bitch is so crazy. It's delicious. She is so unhinged in this way that I need to see her on television. Put her on The Traitors. Put her on RuPaul's Straight Race. Put her on MTV's The Challenge. I want to see her. The stunt of hiding your divorce papers in a cookbook.
Well, that wasn't all she had in the cookbook.
I bet it wasn't.
Because she also handed him the statements from their bank for their mortgage for the last 3 months, showing that it had been unpaid.
Oh.
The divorce papers, on closer inspection, were already embossed with Kelly's John Hancock. Her plan was to get the house foreclosed on and submit the papers to Travis for divorce on the same day, rendering him bankrupt, which would allow her to take the children, and since he would be left penniless in financial ruin, he wouldn't be able to stop her.
Wow. She was playing chess, and Travis had just learned they were in a game.
Well, he had already gone to the attorney. Kelly didn't know about that. That was a secret attorney meeting. And so that prompted him to shred the divorce papers. And he told Kelly that he would be happy to divorce her, but that they would be filing for said divorce jointly.
Mm-hmm.
Travis got everything sorted out with the bank, and Kelly moved out of the house. As they started to disentangle their lives from one another, there were hopes that they could have an amicable divorce. It seems that was not in the stars for them, having already traveled so far along the road from matrimony to acrimony. Filing jointly for divorce would help make the process more straightforward, according to one of the divorce attorneys. And that was a good thing because things did not need to get messier than they already were. But they will.
Shocking.
Since Travis would be staying in the house, he agreed that Kelly could take whatever she wanted out of the house, and anything that she left behind was his by default. Kelly was so grateful that she took anything that wasn't nailed down. From silverware to toilet paper. Travis was like, okay, cool. He went and bought a large package of toilet paper since he had been left with none. He came home from work the following day. She'd taken the package of toilet paper he just bought as well.
Tell me that her and Tiffany Pollard would not be television gold.
You know, I'll watch New York on pretty much anything.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm subscribing to Kelly's show.
I mean, I obviously need to learn more, but...
Yeah. So the only thing Travis really cared about that had been in that house was his daughters. So he was willing to share custody with Kelly. By Christmas, Travis had finally refurnished his home and was excited that his daughters would be able to stay at his place finally. Kelly, as it turns out, was not on the same page with Travis about sharing custody. It seems she was unwilling to do that. And she absolutely threw a fit at the idea that their children would stay at Travis's for Christmas. As a matter of fact, if Travis did not bring the kids back to Kelly, she would call the police and tell them that Travis was a dangerous man who was kidnapping their children. So Travis acquiesced and took the girls back to Kelly's place. 3 months went by, and now we're at Easter 2016, and Travis was about sick of Kelly's unwillingness to permit their kids to stay the night with him. So he didn't take them back to Kelly's place, despite that clearly being her expectation. She demanded that he bring them to her. He declined. She showed up. He wouldn't open the door. She banged on the doors. She banged on the windows. She screamed and hollered and huffed and puffed and tried to blow the house down.
I'm sure that was really healthy and good for their kids.
Well, Travis and the girls relocated to the basement because of all the chaos that she was causing, and they slept in the basement. And at some point, the cops did come to Travis's house.
Okay.
It's not really clear if this was Kelly making good on the threat she made at Christmas, or if this was a neighbor because they were listening to a banshee screaming and terrified of what was going on. It was at this point that Travis realized that despite wanting their divorce to be smooth and amicable, Kelly was not going to allow that to happen. The Easter 2016 incident was the beginning of a war that would last 4 years for this freshly divorced couple.
Oh, God. I mean, could we argue that Travis should have known when he was trapped into his first date with her?
I've definitely got thoughts about that.
I assume we're going to hear them later.
Is it worth it? I mean, it's pretty obvious. She showed this type of behavior from day one.
Yeah.
The way that she tricked you into going on a date with her and then lied about the date being casual and...
Crazy in the head, crazy in bed. I mean...
Okay, a kiss on the cheek. This war would see practically the entire community turn against Travis, from neighbors to cops to the courts and even their daughters.
Wow.
The police came to their home for the first time on Easter 2016, but that was not the last time. As a matter of fact, it was so many times that the exact number isn't readily available. It got to the point that Travis was afraid that if one of his daughters got any sort of injury while at his house, he knew it would be used against him. Several times, Travis was investigated by Child Protective Services, or CPS. Motions and counter motions were filed in court with regard to custody of their children. Kelly was bound and determined to keep Travis from having any custody of their children because she alleged that he was abusive. And worse, he had not just abused her, but he had abused their children.
Someone is a piece of work.
It's weird because you were like, yes, Kelly.
Well, I still am a little yes, Kelly, but... Also, you're fucking with your kids.
Yeah, Kelly's claims of abuse were supported when her daughters, ages 6, 8, and 9, all made the same allegations. One time when the girls were with Travis, they were like, "Hey, Daddy, want to hear this new song that we learned?" And then they sang it for him, lyricist unknown, but watch out, Kendrick Lamar. At the risk of getting this bop stuck in your head, I'll just give you the lyrics. All Daddy does is hit and kick us. All Daddy does is punch and yell.
Okay.
Fun little songs aside, Kelly had more evidence of this abuse than just her word. She had physical proof. Proof that Travis had used a frying pan to hit one of their daughters so hard that it left a mark on her butt. Now the mark also looked a lot like a mark that you could have if you sat on a specific spot in the jacuzzi tub that was at his house, which Kelly knew about because she had lived there. And he believed that Kelly had instructed their daughter to sit in a way that would cause the mark.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the moment that Travis realized that everything in the world that mattered to him was going to be lost. He said it was a very challenging time to be at war with someone who knew him better than anyone because she knew exactly what to do and say to get under his skin or to manipulate him. She made an allegation that he had choked one of their daughters in a parking lot. She said he emotionally and verbally abused their daughters with all of his yelling and screaming and threatening.
It does sound like her imagination is paying off.
Yeah. All of these allegations and investigations and motions left Travis trying to disprove Kelly's statements, trying to prove that he was a good father who had never abused his children. The court ordered that Travis could only see his daughters one night a week for a year. After a year of this arrangement, they added a night. After the second year, they added another night. So he was up to 3 nights a week. But that was their limit. He was told by the judge that the court would never be able to sign off on him and Kelly splitting custody 50-50. And all the while, he's having to constantly try to prove to the system and the community that he's not an abusive father. And while he's doing this, Kelly was trying to prove that he was. A pattern developed. Travis was supposed to keep the kids, particularly around a holiday. A new allegation against him would pop up. So whichever entity he was forced to deal with then would go through the process of investigating him. At this point, I personally cannot believe that Kelly was not deemed a vexatious litigant and told to get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
She obviously talked to the police and filed motions with the court, but she also spoke to the schools, medical professionals, and even other parents on the playground. Kelly would buddy up to the people who worked the desk at the medical facilities, the ones who entered information into the systems about emergency contacts and whatnot. And she would tell them how awful Travis was and how abusive he was and how the courts were failing her and the kids because they were still allowing him to abuse them. She would craft these narratives in order to get the address on file changed to prevent Travis from being able to find them and change the information so that he had no right, according to the hospital system, to access any information about his children. They went as far as to remove him from the records entirely.
That feels illegal, unethical.
Definitely unethical. There was another incident where one of his daughters had a music recital, and Travis made it a point to be there for it. He arrived at the school, and when he checked in at the front, he was asked to sit in a conference room. The Prairie Police Department showed up, and Travis was detained in that room for an hour, which caused him to miss the recital.
Oh my God.
Kelly had told the school about how abusive he was and said that he was not allowed to come to the campus. She said, if he comes here, the school needs to go into lockdown, which is essentially what happened, except they just locked Travis down. When he reached out to his attorney to see what course of action he had, since there was nothing official that the police should have been able to detain him on, the attorney didn't really have much to say, and it became apparent to Travis that his own attorney had doubts about Travis's version of things, since Kelly was so intent on making it known that Travis was an abuser and a child abuser at that. Travis was at a really challenging place because regardless of how good of a person he was, one accusation weaponized by the wrong person with the right language could undo all of that. The local police viewed him as a bad guy. The schools that his children attended viewed him as a bad guy. CPS, his neighbors. It felt like everyone around him who he would have ordinarily been able to turn to for some semblance of support were unwilling to help him because they all thought he was a bad guy. He was 1,700 miles from home, and it felt unending, relentless. It was as if Kelly had constructed a not-so-fun house, and he just could not escape it.
At what point do you just say, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to pack my shit. I'm going to go back to no man's land, Arizona, and fuck it. If my girls, when they age, decide they want to have a relationship with me, I'll be here. But I don't know how you're supposed to navigate your life when you're in a place where every person is against you.
Travis was feeling helpless and terrified because it did not matter what he did or didn't do, which he couldn't prove anyway. And either way, Kelly's words held more power than his did. She knew how to manipulate people and use her words and emotions as tactics to get people to believe her. It felt really lonely and isolating for Travis. But fortunately, he did have at least one person in his corner, and you already know it wasn't his attorney. In 2017, Travis matched with Liz on a dating app, and they made plans to meet up at a bar. They hit it off immediately, and once they met face to face, they were in each other's lives. Liz was going through a divorce at the time, and Travis was being put through the ringer, so they were able to offer support to one another during these times. Early on, when Liz and her ex were arguing about things as people who are in the process of divorcing are wont to do, she and Travis were having a competition to figure out whose ex was crazier. In case you were wondering, Travis did come out victorious.
Yeah, I knew that was going to have to be the case.
Yeah. Even Liz had her doubts about Travis after he told her practically right away about all of the shit Kelly was putting him through. When he talked about the CPS investigations he'd been subjected to, Liz was like, CPS doesn't just show up for no reason. When Travis would tell Liz, CPS came today, she would side-eye him, but he didn't have anything to hide and would let her have the reports to look over for herself. Liz had a friend who was a child psychologist, and so she'd catch that in the statements that were taken from the children, they would say, Mom says to say, and she didn't understand why the heat was always on Travis, when basically in black and white it indicated that the heat should be on Kelly for clearly coaching the children. So Liz and Travis are seeing one another, and things are going well. Liz has 4 children, by the way, and she threw a birthday party for her son. Kelly showed up, probably assumed her invitation had gotten lost in the mail. She was chatting with Liz, and Liz was like, okay, this is fine. We can chat. We can try to keep things civil between all parties involved. This could be a positive. During their conversation, Kelly asked where Liz worked out, and she told her where. And the next thing she knew, Kelly had gone to her gym and not only joined it, but also told the gym management that Liz was being investigated by the police in an attempt to get the gym to turn over information to her about Liz's membership.
Oh my God.
In 2019, Liz filed a restraining order against Kelly. It was temporarily granted, but later vacated.
Okay. Why was it vacated?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Apparently, Kelly also made it a habit to drive by Liz's home and make contact with her family and friends. And this, I think, is maybe the only thing that you really need to know about Kelly. She tried to file a restraining order against Liz's 5-year-old child.
Oh my gosh, this bitch is nuts.
Yeah, something like that. So now Liz and Travis have something else in common. They're both being targeted and attacked by Kelly without rhyme or reason, other than so she could control the situation, maybe? At this point, I'm not even sure if Kelly knew why she was doing this shit. It just had to be muscle memory by now. But whereas this was Travis's life, Liz did not have to stick around for all of the crazy. She told Travis that something was going to have to give. His daughters were being affected. Her children were being affected. Not to mention the toll it was taking on Liz, the toll it was taking on Travis, the toll it was taking on their relationship. She said, we got to get this sorted out or I'm going to get out. And Travis knew, like you said, that maybe the easiest action he could take to end it would be to just stop fighting and let Kelly win. But he knew that it was only a matter of time before this erratic behavior that was directed at him would be aimed at their children. And he would be damned if he just walked away and permitted that. Particularly, he knew that as the kids grew up, that Kelly was going to target all of this same attention at them that she had been channeling his direction. So Travis and Liz knew that they had to get all their ducks in a row. They had to hold all parties involved accountable, including themselves. They wanted the receipts, and they were documenting everything. Travis put up cameras inside of his home to prove what he was doing and when. The cameras rolled 24/7, and he went to the police station and said to the police sergeant's boss, "Hey, whenever you want to see those tapes, you come by. You can have full access to all of the recordings. I can prove to you that I am not abusive." Now, when Kelly made an allegation, Travis could show the courts exactly where he was and what he was doing at the time of the alleged abuse.
Mm-hmm.
This was an extreme tactic, but also extremely effective. He also took back control over his own reactions because Kelly knew him so well and how to goad him. He no longer let what she did or said upset him, and he no longer engaged in arguments with her. He was killing her with kindness, so to speak. He stopped giving her the power to manipulate him. Travis continued to cooperate with the systems fully. Any request or test that they wanted, he obliged. He had nothing to hide because he knew the accusations were all baseless. CPS visited the home. Courts ordered him to have supervised visits with the children and their guardian ad litem in order to note the types of interactions he and his daughter had. This is what they saw. All three girls engaged Travis in conversation. All three girls joked with Travis and teased him. All three girls initiated play with Travis. Travis responded to each of his children and engaged with them in imaginative play. All three girls made physical contact with Travis. They were sassy. They were funny. They were unafraid. None of his daughters showed any anxiety in his presence. They never chose to distance themselves from him or acted angry toward him. For all intents and purposes, they had a very positive relationship that the girls felt secure and seen in. While Travis was doing everything that the courts asked of him, Kelly was fighting for sole custody. And slowly but surely, Travis's perseverance paid off. Slowly but surely, the court began to believe his denials of abusing his children, especially after she accused the guardian ad litem that the court had appointed to represent the children's best interest of having an inappropriate relationship with Travis.
Oh, God.
Kelly's control was slipping, and nothing indicated this more than when in February or March of 2020, Kelly and Travis were ordered that they would have 50-50 shared custody.
Oh, my.
Moreover, Travis was awarded impasse rights, which meant that if he and Kelly could not come to an agreement on a situation, Travis would have the ultimate deciding vote on how to proceed with regards to their children. The judge also went on the record after the police concluded their investigation and said that there was nothing based in fact that ever came up that supported Kelly's allegations that Travis was abusive. He said sometimes he was harsh with the children, but that does not constitute abuse, and that he does not, quote, take children away from their fathers because their personality is difficult. He left Kelly with a warning to stop using the court system to haul Travis in with foundless accusations, because he would not hesitate to terminate her custodial rights if she kept clogging the courts with crap.
I have a bad feeling that didn't work.
What do you mean?
I don't think this is the last we hear from Kelly.
And that's my case.
LOL, yeah, right. What is it? Michelle 5, Michael 5, Mikkel 5 on the dark web.
Malik 8.
Malik 8.
By December 3rd, 2020, Kelly and Travis were right back where they were in December 2015, arguing over who would have the kids for Christmas. But Kelly could no longer keep her pattern up of filing motions or calling the police or making a report to CPS. Everyone was done with her because they were all onto her by then. So she did the only rational thing that she could think to do in this situation. She went on the dark web. She found a website that said for a fee, they would perform a hit on the target of your choosing. What she couldn't have known was that the service was a scam that had been infiltrated by a team of reporters who had made it their mission to notify people of the danger they were in when these orders came in. So under the username Malik8, which I would have tried to bury the lead on which one of these two was using that username now that we're throwing it back to the beginning, but I can't imagine a scenario in which anyone listening does not know that Kelly is the person who is so desperate to control the situation and prevent Travis from spending time with his own children during the holidays that she would go on to a murder-for-hire website and take out a hit on her ex-husband.
Yeah, because Travis already got what he wanted.
But this was for the second time that she went on a murder-for-hire website.
Second time?
Yeah. On October 19th, 2020, for the nominal fee of $4,000, a bargain, really, Kelly took out the first hit order on Travis, and she waited, and nothing happened. And weirdly, despite her history of running to the police, she did not report being scammed out of $4,000.
Bad news, Kelly. You're not going to get a hit for $4,000.
Instead, after the fight with Travis in early December, she went back on the dark web and she found yet another website that offered a similar service. As I mentioned, this second fraudulent murder for hire site had been infiltrated by a team of reporters in 2020, headed by Carl Miller, who has a whole podcast series about individual cases of people whose lives they pretty much saved by alerting them to the fact that someone in the world was willing to pay money to have them killed. The podcast, which I relied heavily on for this case, is called The Kill List, and I do highly recommend it. This is just one of the many cases that Carl covers.
Oh, Carl.
So The Kill List, I do highly recommend it. In some of the cases, the targets know exactly who to look at, and in other cases, people are taken completely aback and have no clue who would want to have them killed. I think in the first episode of the podcast, Carl talks about a woman whose name was on the list, and he learned that she had been killed, but it was staged to look like a suicide. Her husband had been the one to put out the hit and then had taken matters into his own hands when she was still alive after whatever deadline he had put on her life. Carl and co. have alerted police to at least 175 murder for hire orders. And their work has led to about 30 convictions. Anyway, Carl and co. have breached this website and are trying to make contact with the targets, both existing orders and new orders as they come in. Obviously, time is of the essence. And since he is based in London, I think, and the orders come in from places spanning the globe, it's not like he can jet set constantly, so he enlists the help of reporters who are local to the targets to kind of get the information to them and to connect them with Carl so he can explain more about what's going on. A surprising number of people he has learned throughout this experience kind of scoff at and brush off his claims, which is why it is more effective, he has found, to explain this unbelievable reality face to face. In January 2021, Carl makes contact with Dylan Brogan, a reporter in the Sun Prairie area, who agreed to casually show up at Travis's home on January 12th and tell him that someone wanted him dead.
For $5,000.
Okay, they'd paid $4,000 and then now $5,000.
Right.
So really for $9,000.
Does Carl get to keep that money?
Carl? Carl doesn't run the website.
Oh.
They infiltrated the website.
What does that mean?
They can see when the orders come in. They can see the orders that have been submitted. They can see the correspondence between the website administrator and the people placing orders. And they were investigating the dark web, and they came across this website and, I don't know, hacked it. I don't really know. But they gained access to this website and got the list of people. And they were like, we should probably tell these people that they're on a list because somebody wants them to be murdered.
I don't understand the dark web. I know it runs off of like the Tor network, and you have to have an Onion browser, Onion router. Something like that.
You know more than I do.
Yeah, I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding what it means to have infiltrated a murder for hire website on the dark web. How do the website administrators not know that Carl Miller is looking over all of these transactions?
They might know.
And they just don't care. They're like, fierce, work, bitch.
It doesn't change the fact that people are sending them thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Is it a scam website? Like, do any of the hits ever happen?
We're going to get into that. The conversation did not last long. Travis was pretty curt with Dylan, who did tell him he was a journalist working with a team who had gained access to a website on the dark web as a part of an investigation, and that Travis should know that he was in danger because someone wanted him dead. And not just a little dead, but like a lot dead, because they had already paid money to 2 different sites to make him dead. Unfortunately, Travis was low-key immune to having someone on his doorstep uttering the word investigation. So he was like, thanks, buddy, but bye. And Dylan hit the road.
I understand why Travis would not give much credence or thought to this reporter showing up on his doorstep.
I think you're going to be quite surprised because the way that you said that you would handle the scenario is kind of like a checklist for everything that goes on here.
Okay, yeah.
So while Travis was used to people investigating things showing up at his door, this was not Carl's first rodeo either. So he knew that he needed to find a way to convince Travis and then the police that there was an imminent threat to Travis's life. All of this needed to be done in a way that would not draw so much attention to this awareness of the hit order to Malik 8, because at that point, Carl and co. did not know who was behind the order. This was why it was so important to get Travis to believe them and talk to them, so that when they notified the police, they had an actual name for them to start looking at. If Malik 8 was tipped off in any way, then the danger to Travis increased exponentially.
I feel like if they just communicated with this police force, they'd be like, oh, we know the guy you're talking about. We have an idea about who might want to kill him.
Yes. This is not Carl's first go, though. He has tried this multiple ways. He's tried calling the victims directly. He usually gets hung up on. He's tried contacting the police. He usually doesn't get taken seriously because, hi, I'm a reporter and this person is in danger because of something I read on the internet.
No, you need to do his accent.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Well, just do the accent of your home country.
So technically, this is my home country.
The home of your soul.
So Carl called Travis directly, and Travis was receptive, which Carl thought might be due in part to his British accent. And Travis permitted Dylan to return to his home and set up a video call with Carl. Since Dylan only knew surface level about the situation, and Carl was the one who was versed by this point in speaking with people about the fact that someone wanted them killed. The catch-22 for Carl is always, if I intervene, the person may find out and take desperate action. And if I don't intervene, the person may get fed up with no one taking action and take action themselves.
Right.
One of the biggest sticking points for Carl to make sure the person who ordered the hit wasn't tipped off was usually to have these conversations alone with the individual. But when he was on the call with Travis, Liz was also present. Travis hedged his bets, though, understanding that Kelly was very likely to do something extreme like this, and Liz, not so much. But Liz was visibly on alert and firing off questions about the whole situation, while her mind was clearly racing.
Right.
Carl relayed to the couple that in early December 2020, an urgent order came in for Travis Harper, 5'6", 165 pounds, blue eyes, and short dark hair. It included his home address and his work address. Malik 8 was interested in the normal kill rate of 5,000 because I think that it's more if you want it to be, I think 5,000 is just like get the job done. But if you want it to be a staged accident or something, you know, you pay more for the bells and whistles.
$5,000 just to, quote, get it done?
Yeah.
These people must be fucking professionals and they just work for pennies on the dollar, because how are you going to feel so confident that you're like, yeah, I can get the job done and not get caught for $5,000?
Okay, but Malik 8 also wanted to know if they had any discounts they were running currently, because they had already shelled out $4,000 on another site, and you wouldn't believe it, but that was just a scam.
Well, it is the dark web.
Malik 8 thought that $9,000 for just one person to be killed was exorbitant.
Well, Malik 8 isn't paying $9,000 to the same dark web company.
That's true, but they already paid $4,000 and now they're looking at another $5,000. See, that's 2 months pay.
Wild.
The website was less than amused by Malik 8's antics and was like, you can show us proof that you have at least the $5,000 or you can kick rocks. And Malik 8 was like, I was ripped off before. I need you to also prove to me that you're going to actually kill him. And I need you to do it practically yesterday. The website was like, that's cute. A screenshot of your Bitcoin account isn't quite going to do the job. So put that money into an escrow account and you've got yourself a deal. Malik 8 and the website administrator we're kind of in that Spider-Man meme situation where all the different Spider-Men are pointing at each other, trying to figure out which one's the imposter. They're both very leery of being scammed by the other party. But What Carl noted about the exchange was that Malik 8 was very businesslike in their discussion about this order, which signaled that this was an elevated threat. And the fact that Malik 8 had made it apparent that they've shopped for other sites and already dropped $4,000 elsewhere tells him that Travis was legitimately in imminent danger.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the order, 2 photographs were included. One was pulled from one of Travis's social media pages. It was a picture of him holding one of his daughters, and the child's face was blacked out in the picture. The second photograph was ominous because it was clearly taken by Malik 8 as they drove past Travis's home. It was of his vehicle, and in the reflection of his truck, the vehicle that the photograph was taken from can be seen.
Gotcha now.
Yeah, Malik 8 had access to Travis, which, yet again, heightens the level of threat that Travis was under. Travis, though, was more concerned that Kelly's desperation to control their situation may lead to her harming the children. Specifically, he lost sleep at night over the idea that she would drown their daughters because he knew that she would do it without a second thought if it meant she would be getting back at him.
Right.
That same logic of if I can't have them, no one can. Mm-hmm. Initially, Travis did not take any of this all too serious, but Liz absolutely did.
Thank God he's got Liz.
Yeah. She was agitated at Travis because he told her that this was all a joke. And while they were getting the call set up...
By who?
He told her after the first time Dylan was at his house, he was like, this is just a joke, whatever. But then, of course, he started thinking about it, right? I think it's one of those situations where that's what you say out loud because that's what you need to be true, even if you don't fully believe that that is what's true.
Right.
So she's upset that he was downplaying everything. And while they were getting the call set up, Travis said something offhandedly to her that she did not take lightly. Also, she likely heard Carl's concerns about speaking with Travis in front of her. So she does say, because I listened to the audio of all of this, it is in the Kill List episodes. Also likely having heard Carl's concerns about speaking with Travis in front of her, she did later say that while she knew she and Travis did have a fight earlier that same week, she did not have anything to do with whatever this hit list business was. Travis told Carl all about his ex-wife and how she would stop at nothing to feel as if she won against him. So if there was any validity to this order, she was 100% who would be behind it. It seemed...
The way you're talking makes me scared that Liz did it.
It seems that before Dylan returned to Travis's home, Travis had revisited his texts and noted that December 3rd, he and Kelly had argued about where the children would be for Christmas. So he asked Carl when the order came through. It came through in December with correspondence between the 3rd and the 10th, which seemed to confirm for Travis that Kelly had been displeased with that conversation and started shopping for murder-for-hire websites. Carl had some questions of his own to determine if Kelly fit the right profile of a person who would use one of these sites, including how long Travis had believed that Kelly was seriously capable of causing him harm, to which Travis told him that about 18 months prior, he realized that by not backing down, and as things started to shift in his favor, that Kelly would probably end up killing him over the whole situation. Her behavior had become more extreme and erratic throughout the years, so he fully believed that she was capable of being behind this. In the meantime, Liz, who had spent the time since the sun had started descending, peering through the blinds periodically, slipped into the other room and called the police department, and a couple of them showed up at Travis's house. One of them looked like he got his driver's license last week. He was only in training. Apparently they came because in Liz's relaying of the scenario, they deemed either Carl or Dylan to be a suspicious person, and they were skeptical of what Carl was telling them about the kill order.
The police.
Yes. They were aware of Travis and Kelly's contentious post-divorce relationship and custody war, so they were kind of unsure of what to really believe. The man on the screen in England? That's a tough sell because they hated the British almost as much as you do.
Why?
Just kidding.
I also don't even hate the British.
I know. That was the joke.
I know. But you say it so much, people are going to believe that I believe that.
That's part of the podcast joke. That's podcast lore.
Okay.
When they realized that the Brit was recording them, they turned on their body cameras for continuity purposes. I think that's pretty standard, so that somebody can't edit a video or take a clip out of context from a video. They can check the footage. I think they should have it on at all times, but what do I know?
24/7.
Yeah, 24/7. That's crazy. Can you imagine the conversations that you would overhear them having? I think those are the conversations we should be hearing, because these are the people that we are entrusting our lives with in some instances. Before the police left, they assured Liz that they would take this as seriously as they could. And she was like, I hope so. And they also left Travis with a bit of caution that Carl might be trying to scam him.
Sure. Did he say, listen to my podcast?
No.
I do this for a living? Well, Carl Miller should have. I
don't think that the podcast was born yet. I think as a reporter, you record the conversations. But this was happening in 2021, and the podcast didn't come out till 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. But I mean, if I had a bunch of this footage lying around, I'd be like, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Starting a podcast. So this suspicion seemed to stem from the fact that Carl went to Dylan to go to Travis first before contacting the police. But again, I think he had learned by this point that he was more likely to be taken seriously by the police if he also brought them a name and probable suspect to start with. Travis expressed to them concern about speaking with Kelly because he didn't want to tip her off, but he really didn't want to speak with her. And just an aside, the only communication that Travis and Kelly were allowed to have was through a court-mandated messaging app that they had to use to communicate to each other.
Right.
It couldn't be outside of that, which I like. The police were like, no sweat, we'll just call her and tell her not to contact you, which was alert, alert, alert. Please don't do that, because then she might be onto the fact that Travis knew that she had paid money to have him killed, which makes her more likely to resort to even more desperate measures, which to Liz and Travis meant fear that Kelly would harm the girls. Travis was trained as a Marine, and if he's like any of the Marines that I've known, he has situational awareness. But that was now amplified. When he was returning from work one day, he realized that pulling into his garage was one of the most vulnerable times for him if someone was trying to kill him, because they could slip into the garage as he was pulling in or as he was closing the garage door. So he started carrying a pocket knife and started the process to get a gun. In that regard, not like the Marine that I lived with, because those things were everywhere. But I digress. Travis became paranoid. When it snowed and he went out to shovel it, he darted back into the garage every time a car drove by.
It's not funny.
No,
because
it's not.
It's terrifying.
Right.
I would be so paralyzed. I wouldn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I can't even imagine. And it's not funny. It's just, I always imagine what these things must look like in execution.
Right.
And so this man shoveling snow, and then a car's coming, you know, running back to his garage. He
said that he is not a fast snow shoveler to begin with. He said this really slowed down the process. He didn't want to just be a sitting duck, though, you know? Every action he and Liz took was in response to the potential and constant threat that Kelly may have found the right website on the dark web and that someone was about to kill Travis.
Good God, girl, get a grip.
Not after you just said that you would be
No, I'm
paralyzed.
just kidding.
It was constant. It was suffocating. Travis defended his home as best he could, which he likened to basically preparing for a zombie apocalypse.
Ugh.
He had windows practically boarded up. Everything that he did was shaped by fear.
And is Kelly not noticing that he's fortifying his home?
I don't think that Travis and Kelly have the type of relationship where they, you know, stop by for coffee as they're trading
but
kids.
She drives by his house.
Does she?
I mean, that's what I assume if she took a picture of his house.
Well, that one time. When she took the picture of the house and sent that to the Murder for Hire website, that was before he knew that she had contacted a Murder for Hire website.
Right.
She probably, because for all of the things that you can call Kelly, she was also smart. She probably knew to stay away from his home while she believed that she had an active kill contract out on him.
Very creative woman. Props to you, mama.
Yeah. A cruel irony is that the knowledge that someone wanted him dead forced Travis to not be able to live his life.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And the police weren't really doing anything about it, at least not to Liz's satisfaction. So she took to her law enforcement contacts and was able to get in touch with FBI agent Brian Baker.
Oh, wow.
Brian was put in touch with Carl.
Liz knows the right people.
Yeah, Liz seems to know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian was put in touch with Carl, who spent an hour explaining the whole situation. And because Brian was not some fresh high school graduate training at the Sun Prairie Police Department, he understood that there was legitimacy in the threat that Travis was facing. The fact that Special Agent Baker was not only willing to listen to Carl, but also believed Travis was in danger, breathed a sense of relief almost into Carl, Travis, and Liz. Finally, someone was going to do something about this. Hopefully, they would not have to live their lives in a constant state of fear anymore, because Travis really saw this going one of three ways. 1, they find no evidence and there was no true threat. 2, they find evidence and take Kelly in, and after an hour, she confesses to everything. Or 3, he gets killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, easily the worst of the 3 options.
Now that the FBI was on the case, they began to track Kelly. Her movements were being monitored, and she realized as much. Kelly lived 15 miles from Sun Prairie in Columbus, Wisconsin, and she had started to pick up on the fact that she was seeing the same dark sedan everywhere she went. In her rearview mirror, parked in her neighborhood. It was everywhere always, and that spooked her. She took a picture of the car. She would abruptly turn to try to shake them while driving, and she was spooked enough that she called the police. On February 4th, she got a return call from Officer Cheryl Patty, who wanted her to come to the station to discuss the suspicious vehicle, see the picture, and help Kelly figure out what was going on. Kelly showed up at the station, and they put her in a room with Officer Patty and Special Agent Baker. They started the conversation with Kelly by talking about the troubled history she'd had with Travis, all the allegations she'd made, because what Brian had inferred from her storied case file was that Kelly did not feel as if anyone was listening to her. She didn't feel heard. So he and Cheryl worked to make her feel heard. As Kelly was telling the two of them about the situation, 12 FBI agents were executing a search warrant on her home. After about 40 minutes of listening to Kelly's tales, Brian expressed grave concern for Kelly and her children because someone had ordered a hit on someone in Kelly's family. And what he knows of these types of websites on the dark web are that the people who operate them will take kill orders, they'll take the money, and then instead of killing the person indicated by the person placing the order, they'll take out the person who placed the order. They're unscrupulous, or scrupulous, depending on how you want to look at the situation. Anyway, he wanted to know what Kelly knew or remembered that could help him determine who had placed the order, because that person could be in danger. Then he wanted to know if she recognized anything on a document that he passed to her that could help him determine who was behind this kill order. She reviewed the document, looking shocked and appalled, and as if this was her first time ever seeing this exchange between Malik 8 and the website administrator. This was when Brian shared with Kelly that he had already had an analyst from the FBI's money laundering, forfeiture, and bank fraud unit trace the IP address and the Bitcoin transaction, and he knew where the hit had originated. At this, Kelly took a deep breath and spilled the tea, spilled the beans, made a full-on mess. The search warrant also revealed screenshots of the murder for hire website on Kelly's phone.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Okay, Kelly.
She said no one had listened to her and that she was desperate. The tone of the interview changed at this point, since Kelly was now aware of the fact that they knew that she had sought to have her ex-husband killed. She was read her Miranda rights and placed under arrest. The fact that she was not read her Miranda rights from the jump became a sticking point for her attorney.
You only do that if you place someone under arrest, though, right? That's when you Mirandize somebody?
When you're talking to somebody who is a potential suspect.
Okay.
So Carl and Co. were put in contact with a colleague of Kelly's attorney, who I imagine for ethical reasons was unable to discuss the case with a reporter. And this colleague, Jessa Nicholson Gatz, explained that while it is within the purview of police to lie to a suspect, Kelly was not brought in as a suspect. She was brought in under the pretense of following up on her report of a suspicious vehicle, and everything was framed as a means to keep her and her children safe. So everything she said should not have been admissible in court records.
Baloney.
Kelly pleaded guilty on June 24th, 2021, and at 37 was now facing a maximum of 10 years in prison.
Hard to believe that's the max.
Yeah.
But you know what? In Europe, it's probably like a 10-day max.
Wow.
So.
More about how you don't hate.
I mean, this is more than a fucking murder gets in other countries. And so it's like, okay, well, party.
At her sentencing hearing, Travis was able to deliver his victim impact statement. He felt this was important because he did not believe that Kelly really understood the way that her actions for the years leading up to this murder for hire plot had affected their children. After spending all of those years accusing him of being abusive, everything she had done had been to abuse him and to use the civil and social systems in place to do so, which was abusive to their children as well. Their mother was now going to prison, and their daughters were destroyed by the whole situation.
Yeah.
All the while, Travis spoke to Kelly. She stared down at her lap, with the exception of a few instances when Travis pointed emphatically at her, and she made eye contact with him briefly before reverting her gaze back down. He told her that she was not only not a good person, but that she was a, quote, thing of nightmares, unquote, who is, quote, incapable of human emotion. This is something I found surprising, and you kind of already touched on it, but no psychological assessment was ever administered to Kelly, and her defense team never tried to make a case for her actions to be resultant from some sort of disorder.
Right.
Kelly, when she was given the opportunity to address the court, said, "I was going through a tumultuous custody battle. He'd abused our children emotionally and physically for years. I'd reported it to the police, guardian ad litems. There'd been many court cases, CPS reports, and no one would listen or do anything to stop the abuse and help my children. It was my divine right as a mother to protect my children and help them from suffering. I was desperate and in a very dark place. Went on the dark web to find someone to kill. I am deeply and sincerely sorry for my action."
That doesn't sound like a super sincere apology when you excuse the behavior.
Sounds like she said, "God told me that I could have him killed."
That is what divine right means.
So she expressed regret for her actions very sincerely and said she
Any
hoped...
word on if God was sorry for telling her to do this? Or allowing her the right to do this?
Let me check my notes. She said that she hoped Travis could forgive her.
Maybe that's true. Who am I to judge?
It was Jessa's understanding that the failure to Mirandize Kelly at the beginning of their conversation with her on February 4th ultimately worked in the defense's favor because they were able to use that as a bargaining tool to reduce her sentence. You knock some time off, we'll drop this. Kelly was sentenced to 6 years.
Okay.
And went straight to work submitting appeals.
Okay.
She fired her attorney and opted to represent herself moving forward.
That's never good.
As she sought to receive a compassionate release.
For what?
I don't know.
Was she sick with something?
No word on polycystic kidney disease. In acting as her own attorney, she had direct communication with the judge and would write long, angry notes to him. She has attempted to attack the credibility of Carl Miller by claiming that he created his own hitman websites in order to get stories. Also, he offered her a book deal, which she declined and which also just didn't happen. He did reach out to her to get her side of the story. He does acknowledge in the podcast that it's uncomfortable for him to only have Travis's side of the story, but Kelly declined. I don't know if she thought that that was what the deal was. Maybe she didn't know what a podcast was because she was locked up at that point. Some of Kelly's choices throughout her life indicate that Kelly was always kind of a fraudster.
She's a lot of things. I don't know if I feel comfortable calling her a fraudster. I really like the idea that she is just creative and deeply imaginative and enjoys exploring those feelings through the use of others.
I love that for you.
Obviously, I want to disabuse anyone of the notion that I think it's okay what she did. Nothing that she did was okay. But, I think, and sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's a reason why we have a culture around shows like Snapped.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about a woman who feels so aggrieved, rightfully or not, that's so incredibly entertaining. And maybe entertaining isn't the right word, but captivating. It's something that's really hard to ignore. And I don't know if that has to do with kind of our patriarchal society, in terms of we expect for men to execute acts of power. And then when women do it, it's all the more interesting because societally, that's not what we're supposed to expect. I don't know. So while I detest all of the things that she did, there is something endlessly fascinating about this woman who was able to weave this kind of complex narrative around her life, starting, I'm sure, before, but with getting this man to be her Valentine's date under the pretense of something being wrong with her vehicle, having a week-long event to celebrate their marriage / beginning of military career.
Yeah, I don't think that the week-long thing was a planned thing. I think
No,
that...
sure. But I'm just saying, like, she goes through all of these different iterations of who Kelly is and what she's like kind of willing to accept and do, then into being someone who's a healthcare administrator who doesn't want the husband whose career desire was clear to her before they embarked on marriage. And so it's almost like she has created tumult in her life, whether intentionally or not, that she needs it, that she likes it, all the way to scamming Nigerian princes and doing 2 separate hits on her ex-husband because she's mad. Phenomenologically, it's just interesting.
So in 2012,
Okay.
I just think that all of that is very valid, but I haven't even told you all of the things that she's done yet.
Oh, well, I'm sure this is going to enrich my perspective.
For sure. She and Elaine Erwicki co-founded momtomommy.com, which they explained the website, but I didn't really get it. They had a directory of local healthcare providers for people who weren't sure where to take their kids, and they had some space for people to seek advice from other parents, and then something about free boutique shopping for parents.
Well, that all sounds really lovely.
That's the part that I didn't really understand and didn't really care to. They were featured on Fox News New Mexico, and Carl says that, quote, the whole thing feels hammy and staged in the way that only American daytime television can be.
Shots fired and shots accepted, Carl Miller.
Yeah.
But I've seen EastEnders, and Footballers' Wives, so let's tone it down.
That's not daytime television.
Don't care.
Only 4 months after this daytime television appearance, Elaine had her attorney send Kelly a letter accusing her of swindling a company sponsor out of $27,500.
Wild, but she knows how to get $1.
Kelly had claimed that they were going to be featured on Good Morning America. So they went to New York and they showed up and they were turned away because they had no record of them being invited to be on the show, and security escorted them out of the building. The letter also accused Kelly of hiding her criminal past from Elaine prior to co-founding a business together.
What was her criminal past?
I will get there. But okay. I am realizing that maybe we should have had this discussion prior to starting this podcast. But here we are. Do you have a criminal past I need to know about?
There was a warrant for my arrest in Dallas County for an unpaid speeding ticket.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I put for my next line to be okay, me either, but...
No, I mean... I don't know if that's even like a record. I don't know if that counts, but there was a warrant, but it was like, I didn't even know I had a speeding ticket.
This reminds me of the time that I came home to my apartment and found a letter and I guess a sheriff's business card in my door for like whatever department handles child support. I apparently have 2 children with some woman elsewhere because I have the same first and last name, but not the same middle name as a person who was shirking their responsibilities. And so I showed up physically to the office and I was like, Hi, this says that I owe for child support, but I just feel like I would know if I had children. And the lady was very quick to be like, okay, that's clearly a mistake. Let's fix that. The person and I didn't even share the same middle initial, but whatever. While Travis was stationed in Yuma and Kelly was living in Phoenix, Kelly was accused of and pleaded guilty to attempting to steal $4,500 from the bone and joint clinic she had been working at, which was a felony. She did this by alleging that a client had prepaid for their surgery. I don't know. I don't understand it, but don't worry. Because if Elaine thought that she was special being left out of Kelly's little felony secret, she was wrong. Travis had no clue that this had happened either, and they were married at the time. In 2016, she was accused of fraudulently writing a $37,000 check. A credit union cashed the check, and as of 2021, they still had been unsuccessful in collecting those funds from Kelly.
They cashed a $37,000 check?
Fraudulent check, yeah. Another thing Kelly did...
What's the credit union? Where?
Try Wisconsin.
Damn.
Another cute thing Kelly did was she obtained a forged letter after she and Travis divorced that indicated that she was approved for a $200,000 mortgage loan. But the only criminal charges to this point that Kelly had faced was for the $4,500 in 2005, which is a shame because if any of these other victims of Kelly's had taken legal action, including the credit union, or treated the matters as criminal, since they were, she may have faced prison time or legal consequences sooner and may have never had the opportunity to try to get Travis murdered. Travis and Liz have spent the time since 2021 with this feeling that this situation is not over or resolved because Kelly has had nothing but time to sit around and think about how Travis seemingly won, which is unacceptable to her. Travis believes that this will still ultimately end in her making another attempt on his life.
I mean, that's a fair assumption.
Yeah.
That is a fair feeling to have. That kind of despair looming over me would just make me sick.
But in the meantime, he and Liz moved to a remote area with their 7 children.
Old Mother Hubbard.
They sometimes celebrate holidays and participate in family activities with Liz's ex-husband. Once the dust on their divorce settled, they have had a very amicable and healthy co-parenting dynamic.
Oh, that's lovely.
And in May 2024, 3 years after the sentencing hearing, Kelly was released from prison.
Oh my.
She has maintained that she is a victim of Travis as well as the criminal justice system.
Okay.
According to a UK-based dark web assassination expert, all of the websites are just cryptocurrency cons run by people wanting to make money off of scumbags. So if anyone listening to this is considering perusing the dark web to place a kill order on someone, instead of seeking someone to commit murder for you, might I suggest knitting? It's productive, and you can make something to keep you warm, which you probably need if you're that cold-blooded.
Or, get creative. Not with murder. Don't murder. But there are so many ways to make somebody miserable. Why think you have to kill?
Oh, God.
I am perpetually sending out the wrong message that I know is wrong.
The title of this is not until the end of crime.
Well, I do need crime to continue so we can continue making this podcast.
I think we've got a good backlog we could hit.
Right, but I like it when it's interesting.
And that is the case of the ultimate bitch list, Kelly Harper's attempted murder of her ex-husband.
Fascinating. I'm always disappointed when someone doesn't die. But no, I'm just kidding. This was very good. And I liked it a lot better than Anna Maria Sangula.
No. Ana Maria Angulo, Ana Maria Gonzalez Angulo.
Gonzalez Angulo.
Yeah.
I liked this better because Travis is... And sorry, it's not to say there's people that aren't worthy victims, but he was just a victim that was really easy to sympathize with because this concerted effort to not only take his children from him and make him miserable, but also end his life. He clearly he did not deserve it.
Right.
And not to say that, what was his name? Blumenshine. He didn't deserve it either because no one deserves death via murder, but
he was playing in murky waters.
He was playing on the devil's doorstep. He asked for some of that shit. But with Travis, He really did not deserve that. And I think, I know it's kind of a loaded term sometimes, but it sounds like Liz ended up being a true blessing to him and probably his children, because I don't know if he would have made it as far if he didn't have Liz.
Yeah.
And
definitely a saving grace.
Yeah. And so I think there's a little bit of something for everybody in this story. There's crime. There is this intricate narrative weave of lies perpetuated by Kelly. And there's also a love story, which I think is really sweet. Not because they haven't gone through trials and tribulations, but because they navigated it together.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of elements of this story that I really liked. I do want to say veteran mental health is not a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our mentions of PTSD and how veterans, especially from combat situations and deployments, struggle with mental health, there are resources out there for you, for your loved ones, for your spouses, for your children. Sometimes that looks like, I can't remember the name of the program, but...
Isn't the current administration in the process of gutting a lot of those programs?
Sure, but there are still nonprofits that are doing that work too.
Yeah.
And so while there may not necessarily be all of the government resources allocated towards that help that have previously been there are still other avenues that you can pursue. And so please know that at Until the End of Crime, we do take all mental health issues very seriously. And veterans' mental health is no joke.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you were able to find something in there that you could connect with.
This has been my favorite story you've told me.
Wow, I keep upping my game.
Yeah.
You've told me that a couple times now.
Have there been any that I didn't mean it?
You said that you really enjoyed the Celestine case.
I can't even remember who Celestine is now.
The life insurance fraud.
I
where
loved
she
that
had
case too. Yeah, I did.
You liked that it was very direct from the jump who was the bad guy. And this was pretty clear too.
Yeah, I love when you just come out with it.
I wanted to try to keep some of the mystery alive. Mm-hmm. But so early on, and probably because so much of this comes from him without her voice present, but I think that I can guess what she would say because she literally said it in court, that he's abusive and that nobody listened to her and she was just trying to protect her children and yada yada. But I wanted it to seem like it could have been either one of them, but she's like, no, it's gonna be me.
It's really difficult because I want to live in a culture and world where we believe women. Mm-hmm. And that would necessitate that women are honest about instances of abuse. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really complicated dichotomy of belief versus disbelief and common sense, sometimes versus morality, I think. Because my natural inclination is that if a woman tells me that her husband is abusing her or that her ex-husband is abusing their children, my normal instinct would be to say, I'm so sorry. What are we going to do?
Not just you. And that's why she knew what she was doing by saying he's abusing the kids, because most people respond that way.
Yeah. It was an exploitation of morality.
Mm-hmm. This is my second episode this month, which is Women's Month, or what is it called?
Women's Empowerment.
Is it?
Month. Women's History Month?
Women's History, yeah.
Did I do a woman case for this month yet?
Probably not.
There's a lot of men out there killing people.
You didn't hit Black History Month either.
Well, that was definitely unintentional. And it doesn't help that February is short.
Yeah, so March is Women's History Month, and March I brought you 2 cases of women who they can also have schemes of murder. I didn't include this, and I wanted to mention it earlier, but I think I refrained. Most of the people who submit orders on these murder for hire scam sites are women. And you were talking about the patriarchy and whatnot. And I think that kind of all goes together, right? The women are not going to get their hands dirty. They're going to try to outsmart the system. And so...
Well, and they're not going to do violent acts themselves.
Right. But I think that goes back to the socialization piece, which we talk about. So anyway, that's the ultimate bitch list.
Great work. Loved it.
I knew you would. You love a bitch list.
I do.
A complete list of sources and any links can be found in the show notes.
And that's all we've got for this episode. If you enjoyed listening and want to hear more, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a review.
Recommend us to a friend.
And make sure you're following us at End of Crime Pod on Instagram.
Our email address is endofcrimepod@gmail.com, so feel free to reach out with questions or episode suggestions.
And thank you for once again tuning in and listening.
Until the next crime.